Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking into something a little bit different, and as noted in the update video, starting to branch out a bit more from just solely Aphalas when it comes to the books, and we're actually looking at Soul of the Gem as hopefully if I've edited it correctly, the new intro and that should show. Um, but we're looking at something very in particular with Soul today. We're not touching on the story itself. We've done videos before that will probably get redone in the future when more content about it is being added. In this case, we're actually going down a different road with the inspiration behind Soul. And yeah, this video is going to probably be a little bit of a mix of me talking about Soul and the whole focus and identities around it, but at the exact same time is also going to be me slightly gushing about a show that I grew up absolutely loving. Because that show, in its own way, was quite a hefty inspiration for, at the very least, how the powers kind of work in some concepts. But the actual, when I looked at the plan for some of the other projects and things, Soul was never originally on the list. You had Aphalas, you had Code of Chivalry, you had a few others which I won't mention because they're future things. But Soul was one that did come a bit out of left field and a little bit later on. And the way it was broken down was looking at the things that have either inspired me in terms of creativity or are things that I am passionate about. And I studied philosophy and looked at the ideas of the soul and spirit, consciousness, all of these different things. And also just the whole dynamic of having it a more family focused one with like the ancestral ties and the bloodlines, just keeping all of that together. But then it was trying to look at it in a different sense of how do you do that and also have these figures have some sort of power that's at the same time something that's connective but also not like massively out there in terms of like power scaling and things like that. How do you keep it bloodline focused? How do you keep it tied and all the rest of it? And then the idea of the necklaces, or at least at first it was a pendant, then it got developed into the necklaces with the different pendants on the end, came about with the idea of throwing in the love of history as well and tying it to Middle Ages, the medieval style warriors, and having them bonded or have the potential of being able to bond with their descendants. And the whole idea of how I came out with that, like, I would say it's not really a MacGuffin item, but the necklaces and all of that is from the old animated show Huntic, Secrets and Seekers. And yeah, Huntic in its own way has been a strong inspiration for Soul of the Gem, but at the exact same time there are large parts of it that are omitted when you go through the show of Huntic. It's like the part that's been taken is the idea of the amulets and being and having a spiritual bond with these titans that you can call forward in the same vein as how the warriors get called forward through their descendants in Soul. But the other part that's a significant part of like the powers in Huntic, the whole magic with the spells and or powers, whichever one you want to call it, like the actual combative stuff or things that the Seekers themselves can use, that part's completely just not there. It was just solely focusing on the Titan side of it and just having this bond and being able to bring it forward. But it does also work in some different ways, because there's the concept that you see a few different times throughout Huntic where Seekers either struggle to bond with a Titan, or in some cases they get rejected and stuff like that. And the idea that for new people in this bloodline to be able to bond with their own ancestry, they have to go through a specific test that in some way connects to their family, whether it's showing their drive to protect them, or whether it's overcoming a break between. It is, if I had to say that Soul of the Gem, the powers, the story going forward, and that the two things that are the key fundamental focuses on it is the idea of more like spiritual kind of style power, but also the idea of bloodline, the idea of family, and keeping it focused, and the whole nature of how the characters that you actually come into seeing in the first book, yeah, they are not all related, but they are all still tied and connected through like the almost like outer sphere of another family. The whole concept of referring to a friend as someone who you see as family as well, so counting that as well. Huntic did a lot of interesting elements, and one of the others that does play into Soul a little bit, although not in the same vein, whereas Souls was more tracking down people and looking for it that way. One thing that Huntic did tie into it as well, with history and all of that, is almost, I don't want to say Indiana Jones kind of exploration, but you had that sort of outward focus. You look at one of the key characters into it, Locke Lambert, and how his whole thing was he wanted to follow in his dad Ethan's footsteps and become basically an adventurer, go on all of these different trips and things like that. But his whole thing is also about finding his dad, and because his dad's vanished, and then unfortunately Hunting did only ever get 2 seasons, which sucked because it did absolutely deserve another, at least. But you have it how they all get locked into like this shadowy conflict against these other groups and what they're planning to do. And I mean, it, in terms of the show, season 1 and season 2, it's like season 1 is all of it coming together and dealing with the shadowy foe and all of that and stopping their plans. Season 2, on the other hand, whilst it goes more into grittier, like you've got this group actively trying to hunt down and destroy this powerful family of Seekers, the other part of it is that further towards the end, it does very much fall into more of the we're here to, it's like season 1 is save the world from being dominated or controlled by one person. Season 2 is stop the world from just being annihilated. So but the other thing with Soul is that I don't know if there's ever actually, I don't think there is ever an established limit with the amount of Titans that you could have in Huntic, because of how it worked with them being tied to a spirit world and things. But with Soul, there is absolutely a limit that's been put in, a limit of, well, it's 100, but it's a bit finicky of like whether there's 101 or not because of stuff that happens in the first one. But it is limited down to that number, so not going to be ventured off into all these venture stuff. But I put that limit in mainly because, well, mainly twofold. One, it adds a bit more of an element of realism to it, and the other is it just helps again keep it grounded in the factor that these are not powerful titans or magic users or even jumping into the old mythologies of having like King Arthur or Morgan Le Fay or anything like that. No, this is like a power that has gone through time. In the past, when these warriors first came together, it was out of the interest of protecting their bloodlines and given the false impression that, oh, we could provide them guidance or things like that, or just aid them throughout, when it falls into the whole concept of, okay, there was actually a spell that went a bit awry and it messed things up, but they were never meant to actually like fully bond with their bloodlines in the way that they did. But yeah, combining the spirits in that sort of way without falling into different little issues of like, how is this person or where was it, all of this, because then you do fall into again the sort of trotting stuff where yeah, some of these, actually quite a few of them, are missing or unaccounted for. Honestly, in the actual first story, I can say, because it isn't really a massive spoiler or things like that. There's really actually not that many like of the necklace items and things, the things that have the spirits bonded within them. There's really not that many that get shown or utilized. Like, I would say altogether, a little over maybe a dozen. And then when you put that into the standing of it being that when there's around 100 of them altogether, it leaves quite a bit of room of like, okay, where are these other ones? Of some of them just been lost. There could be ones that are down at the bottom of the ocean. So there's all of these different areas. Like, not every family has these items. Some of them want nothing to do with them. Others would be interested in finding out more, and all the rest of it. And yeah, like, I know Hunting may seem like a bit of a strange pick to some people as why it was the inspiration of it, but it, more than anything, it came down to not just like the style is like going from an amulet to a necklace, though loosely connects that way, but the other part of it and the big part of it is like when a seeker in Hunting is using a titan, they have bonded with them, and then when the bond gets stronger, it's the power bond and all that. But to originally bond, it does take proper focus, it does take an effort, and also when they're first using it, it can be more exhausting and stuff like that. And those are the sort of things that I really did take the inspiration for. It's like when they first use one of the necklaces and basically trade their spirit in the physical plane for their ancestor, it can be interesting because you do it for the first time and it's a weird sort of style and it can exhaust you. But the other part of it that does get noted is that can also happen if you are someone who has bonded quite a while back, but you just haven't you haven't had the need to bring it forward because, again, like, these are warriors who have bonded with it. It's like you're not going to just bring them forward in the way that it just trades places. So you're not going to takes their place in like the spiritual and physical realm because of the rules that get applied. So you're not going to have it where you're just drawing them forward because you fancy to drink with your ancestor. That doesn't happen. So if you don't use it for a long while, it can still cause a lot of like mental and spiritual strain because whilst it's not a case of being possessed, like you're not becoming the ancestor, spirit is your spirit is trading places with your ancestor between the spiritual and the physical plane, the spiritual planes effectively being conduits within the amulets and or the necklaces. And when your warrior gets defeated or taken down or anything, it switches over and all the rest of these different things. But yeah, there's other things like another element of what happens in hunting, which you do see, is not just a breaking of like the bonds and things, which you do see a little bit of, but not a massive amount. The actual thing you do see is actually a bit of a mix. Like, there is, and I don't know if anyone may have watched it or if anyone intends to watch it, maybe kind of spoiler for the next bit, but in the season 1 finale, you have the Titan Sabriel, one of Sophie's Titans, get destroyed. And you actually watch the amulet that Sophie has for Sabriel completely shatter, and it's like that bond is broken. But then a bit later on in season 2, Sabriel does actually return because her bond with Sophie was so strong. So I don't know if it's the same version or a more powerful version, but it gets to the point where Sophie does not actually require the amulet to be able to summon her because she gets basically it's almost like Sabriel becomes a part of her. Like there's an emblem that forms on her hand and things. But on the other side, you do have a few other Titans. I know that there's some like Lindorm and Soulwing and stuff where, or I think Archwarder as well, where their amulets do completely get shattered. Most of the time is because and it's through various different things. I don't know if we ever see it when one goes back to the spirit realm. One gets taken into like a void or something, and others get basically assimilated by another Titan, and it just completely shatters the bonds, and you can see like the power damage and all of that. But it's like if your ancestor or you that you've bonded to can only, because of the rules of these powers, if only one of you can sit in the physical plane at one point and not both of you, what happens if your warrior is forward and in the fight the necklace gets broken or something, or elsewhere, or your ancestor gets killed or something whilst they're out and you're in the spirit? Basically, regardless of whatever you look like in all of that, it's either going to have a key amount of damage or you're trapped. You're trapped in like the talismanal things and in the more spiritual realm and things like that. So when you look at how Huntic has inspired the writing of Soul of the Gem and the creation of the world, it does vary. There's some things that have got like no connection, like their spells and things like that. There's other bits like the globe trotting and stuff, which is very loose. But then there's when you get closer into the ideas of like the bonds and stuff like that, that's the parts that really get taken. Because again, another key part of Huntic that is throughout, I would say, in particular season one, which is ironic because I think season two actually has the bigger focus around family, but is the idea of family. When you look at the four main characters, you've got Dante, who grew up with people who he saw as his mentors and close friends, and then the emotional ties that occur with that later on. You've got Zalia, who is, I think, basically, who is an orphan who gets taken in by the shadowy organisation and worked out that way. You've got Sophie, who goes on a journey of uncovering her family, and you've got Locke, whose journey starts by him trying to look for his father. So the family dynamic within the show is actually very strong, and then in season two you get the brothers Den and Harrison and how they get split and having to basically try and find each other. So yeah, I don't exactly know like what the next steps will be for Soul in terms of pursuing those dynamics further, like family and focusing around that, and the worry about putting each other at risk and things like that is a big part of the first book. As it develops further on into the second one and stuff like that, I would still like for it to be a focus. How much of it is going to be, I am not sure. There could be different elements that play into it, but yeah. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to note on before. I don't really think there is. It's like there is more stuff that I want to focus on with Soul and all of that, and it will be going in further, but I did just want to touch on this because it's the first time I've done a video that's talking about the inspiration behind one of the writings and like the crossover between it. And look, I'm just going to give a moment here to gush about Huntic. There were a few bits of it that haven't aged particularly well, but in general, the story, the style, the soundtrack, they were all really good. And for a show that only had 2 seasons and has still a loyal following now, but also gets slept on by quite a lot of people, when you actually look at it gram for gram, it actually had some pretty powerful characters in it as well. So, especially like, but it's also power through simplicity. Like, how does the antagonist of the overall series, to I think as far as it went, how does he fit the bill as an antagonist? And he's a vile manipulator. His personality and all of that, and like his habit of attacking people from behind and stuff like that, it all falls into that, the stab in the back, the betrayal and all of that. But then you've also got the factor where he has all of that, but he can also revive himself. So he has spells. Like, there's one part after one of his revivals where, trying to remember correctly, he takes out I think 4 titans, including a power bonded one, then immobilizes 2 seekers, and then just does a mass attack wave against all the rest. So yeah, and then survives getting tackled by like one of the ultra powerful titans, the legendary titans. So he he can tank a lot, but then you also look at like some of the other elements to him, and It's like some of the titans he has, and he has like the legendary titans were all about certain things, and the one he has is about betrayal, keeping with that theme. And the fact that it takes the summoning of two different legendary titans to be able to bring that thing down. It's like, okay, yeah. That's that's powerful. But it's also like he is incredibly powerful, but again, a lot of his power comes from manipulation. It's not like straight just raw. Like, he is an interesting one where he's like, I have the power to completely overwhelm you on a Seeker vs Seeker thing, but I'm just going to manipulate you instead. Um, it's like a wild like predator animal just toying with its food almost. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there for today because otherwise I'm just going to start rambling about favourite scenes of hunting and stuff like that, and the actual video is a mix of Soul and slightly talking about that. But yeah, the final notes are, if you want to pick up a copy of Soul of the Gem, you can on the PayHip and you can on the Ko-fi. It is only digital release at the moment. There are no physical copies. It has not gone through its first print run yet, so it is just digital. You can also check out the other couple of videos that have been done. You can share them about to show some love and support, which is a lovely way of doing it. Like, yeah, there's supporting for something like this is like, yeah, picking up and reading the stories is absolutely amazing, but also just sharing it, getting the word out, that's really great as well. And obviously the old algorithm stuff, the comment, like, and subscribe stuff, and all those bits and bobs. Yeah, as you can also see, as just the final little note, there is a new intro. The intros are different now. I thought that it was high time that we had a bit of an update, and you'll find that they are more tailored to their specific content types. I sat here I think just over a week ago, and I made like 5 intros, just intros, and just kept them tailored to what they're doing. So yeah. But anyway, whilst the intro has changed, the outro might change a little bit later, but for now it's the same, as is the Welcome to the Kingdom of Aphalas and the World of Fellowmine books. Thank you all for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you would like to see some similar content to this one, you can click there. Or if you would like to change around and have an explore of some of the other content, then you can check out the link below, which will be to a playlist. And if you would like to check out the content on other pages or socials, or if you would like to explore some of the other elements in detail, or pick up a book or whatever, or come and chat to me on Twitch when I'm alive, then down there. And as you can see, it has a list of what to expect on each of those platforms. And until next time, welcome to the Kingdom of Aphalas, the world of Fellowmine books. Please do like, please do subscribe, and if you want to, pop out a comment.